Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So I think we're on text 18. See if you agree. I think we did this one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 18. 13, 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of June 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. Text number 18. Jyotisham apitar jyotis tamasak padamuchyate jnanam geyam jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya vishtitam. Jyotisham apitar jyotis tamasak padamuchyate jnanam geyam jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya vishtitam. Jyotisham apitar jyotis tamasak padamuchyate Jnanam geyam jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya vishtitam. Jyotisham apitar jyotis tamasak padamuchyate Jnanam geyam jnanagamyam Vidisarvasya vishtitam. Jyotisham, in all luminous objects. Api also taught that Jyotihi, the source of light, Tamasaha, the darkness, Padam, beyond, Uchyate is said, Jnanam, knowledge, Gayam, to be known, Jnanagamyam, to be approached by knowledge, Vidhi, in the heart, Sarvasya, of everyone, Vishtitam, situated. Translation. He, the Supersoul, is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge, he is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. Purport. The Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of light in all luminous objects like the sun, moon, and stars. In the Vedic literature, we find that in the spiritual kingdom there is no need of sun or moon, because the effulgence of the Supreme Lord is there. In the material world, that Brahma Jyoti, the Lord's spiritual effulgence, is covered by the Mahatattva, the material elements. Therefore, in this material world, we require the assistance of sun, moon, electricity, etc., for light. But in the spiritual world, there is no need of such things. It is clearly stated in the Vedic literature that because of his luminous effulgence, everything is illuminated. It is clear, therefore, that his situation is not in the material world. He is situated in the spiritual world, which is far, far away in the spiritual sky. That is also confirmed in the Vedic literature. Adityavarnam tamasak parastat, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. He is just like the sun, eternally luminous, but he is far, far beyond the darkness of this material world. His knowledge is transcendental. The Vedic literature confirms that Brahman is concentrated transcendental knowledge. To one who is anxious to be transferred to that spiritual world, knowledge is given by the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart. One Vedic mantra, Shvedashvatara Upanishad 6.18, says, Tam hadevam atma buddhi pakasham mumukshur vai sharanamaham papadye. One must surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he at all wants liberation. As far as the goal of ultimate knowledge is concerned, it is also confirmed in Vedic literature, Tameva vidadvati mrityameti. Only by knowing him can one surpass the boundary of birth and death. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. He is situated in everyone's heart as the Supreme Controller. The Supreme has legs and hands distributed everywhere, and this cannot be said of the individual soul. Therefore, that there are two knowers of the field of activity, the individual soul and the Supersoul, must be admitted. One's hands and legs are distributed locally, but Krishna's hands and legs are distributed everywhere. This is confirmed in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.17. Sarvasya prabham ishanam sarvasya sharanam brihat. That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supersoul, is the Prabhu, or Master, of all living entities. Therefore, he is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. So there is no denying the fact that the Supreme's Supersoul and the individual soul are always different. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. There's some talk going on. I think it may be Ariane. Can you, maybe, I don't know if these doors are open or whatever. Thank you, Prabhupada. So we'll have a little intermission for a moment. Someone's coming from somewhere else, or?
Yeah.
See what? Maybe it's upstairs. Can you hear? Try the stairs. It's got to be coming from one of those rooms up there. Sorry about this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Very loud phone call. Okay. So we did Om Jnana, and just to review, we go back to text number 1, and we look at this chapter, and we find Arjuna's questions. My dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge. And so we're at the object of knowledge now. And this verse talks about that Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamyam, that the Super Soul, he is knowledge himself. He's the object of knowledge, and he's the goal of knowledge, and he's situated in everyone's heart. Now you may ask, well, how is he knowledge? Because everything that we know, first of all, our ability to know is coming. He's giving us the intelligence. He's empowering our senses, if you will. And what do we know? We know varieties of the way the modes of nature are working in this material world. We know so many millions of other different things. But they are all constituted of the energy of the Supreme. So in one sense, just like we say Krishna is this universe, not just in the Vishwarup, which is imaginary, but in the way in which he's expanded as his energies. That's why it says, Idam mi Vishram Bhagavan. Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva, Idam mi Vishram Bhagavan ivetara. But it seems to be different, as if it's itara, iva itara, as it's different, and we don't see Krishna here. But when you develop the vision by the philosophy and by sadhana and by purification, you immediately connect everything in your experience to the Supreme. That's why I was just reading in chapter 8 of the Madhya Lila, is the talks with Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya's talks. And at the end of the chapter, Ramananda Roy, he says, please reveal yourself to me, because I'm seeing you different. I'm seeing you now with a dark blackish complexion, and then there's a golden complexion, and finally I see that you're actually Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya has this verse, which I forget the Bengali, that a great devotee, he sees his Ishtadeva everywhere. He doesn't actually see a tree, for instance. He sees Krishna, because he immediately connects that to Krishna, and he sees. So in that sense, everything that we see, everything we experience, all our knowledge is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not the Super Soul. So he's the object of knowledge, meaning that whatever we know is him, and the goal of knowledge. What is the purpose of gleaning knowledge? Well, there's so many material purposes you can have. You want to understand the world. You want to exploit the world, the material energy, just out of curiosity. You may want to know something. But what is the goal of all that knowledge? The scientists, over the last few hundred years, have built a tremendous body of knowledge. Some of it technical, some of it theoretical, by which they feel they've increased their understanding of what the material world is all about. But really, they have no clue. They're simply moving from one part of the material energy to another, becoming fascinated by this. How can we go to the different planets? I get a magazine every month because I'm old, so they have this thing about anti-aging magazine or something like that. So they're always like the latest thing. We've just found out that there's huh? Yeah, right. The what is it called? The stem cells. Not that they get from babies, but the other way of getting stem cells. This is the way in which you can actually reverse aging, and they have so many tested. So, that's very interesting. I mean, eternal youth. So anyway, that's knowledge of some sort, but it's not knowledge that really moves you forward in toward your goal of life, to the real goal of knowledge. It's all part of Maya's scheme, to distract you and give you hope that you're somehow going to conquer over her and attain eternal life, or a better life anyway. So this is why the Bhagavad Gita is so important. It's very concise, and it's bringing you, quickly to the understanding of the goal. Okay, the super soul is the goal of knowledge, but who's behind the super soul? It's Krishna. So Krishna is the actual ultimate goal of knowledge. It can bring you complete fulfillment. And as oftentimes the Shastra will give certain things in our experience, and then explain how Krishna is the source of that. And the big thing here is Jyotisham, the everything illumination by which we really understand the world, we see everything. That's coming from Krishna. As we understand from Brahma Samhita, Yasya Prabha Bhavato Jagadanda Koti, Koti Vishesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Bindam, that the effulgence, the Brahman effulgence, which is really ultimately the source of all the universes, that's simply the effulgence of his body. So this great Brahman effulgence that the Brahmavadis are so enamored of, behind that is the form of the Lord. In other words, you have to go beyond that. That's why the Ishopanishad is so concise. But there's that verse, Hiranmayena patrena satyasyahavitam bukum tattan pushana pavanu satyadhamaya drishtaye. Please, O Lord, remove this dazzling effulgence, your golden Hiranmayena patrena, so I can see your face. Literally says, so I can see your face. So that's why the Isha Upanishad, specifically about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His knowledge is transcendental. He quotes extensively here. This seems the Shvetashva Upanishad. There's so many verses just quoted from there. So this Jyotisham, he starts with that. Tamasak Paramuchate. Wherever Krishna is, wherever his devotees are, wherever his book is, the light of knowledge shines. It's just like that verse that Bhadravida Dasa likes to quote sometimes before the Bhagavatam class. Krishna Swadhamopagade Dharma Jnana Nibisaha Kalo Nascha Dushamesha Puranako Dunodita. You recognize the verse, you may not know by heart. Yeah. So Krishna's left the planet. He's taken with him Dharma and Gyan. So where are we going to get Dharma and Gyan? The Bhagavatam has risen just like the sun to give light to the benighted members of this world. So the super soul is always trying to give that light. He's always emanating that knowledge. We turn our face away and we ignore, and so we need to have him come out externally in the form of the book, in the form of the preceptor, sadhu, shastra guru, to give us that same knowledge, that same light, come out of the darkness. Let's see. One must surrender in the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he at all wants liberation. As far as the goal of knowledge, it is confirmed in Vedic literature, tameva vidadvati mrityumeti. One of the goals is to surpass death, to regain our deathless nature. Only by knowing him can one surpass the boundary of birth and death. And then, of course, he's with us at every moment. This is, one of the reasons he says at the end of the chapter 29, at the end of chapter 5, text 29, Bhoktaram yaggisapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram sudidam sarvabhutanam gyatpamam shantam richati. That he is the well-wishing friend. Prabhupada explains this word surit. How Prabhupada was chanted, it would always end his letters, "You're ever well-wisher." So he says this is a surit. Surit is someone who's such a good friend of yours that he always has your best interest in heart and is always working for your best interest. So this is the super soul, Krishna. He is always trying to enlighten us, bring us out of this suffering situation. It's not that we've been condemned to this world, to this dark world, whether it's this world or the hellish planets, for eternity. That whole idea of eternal damnation completely negates the idea of an unlimitedly merciful Lord. How is there any mercy? If we're really children, and deep down inside we're pure, then how can there ever be like this eternal abandonment? It just doesn't compute, So we learn in every species, the super soul is still with us, guiding us, through our sentence, in the lower species, and finally come up to the human form of life. And when we come up there, there's always a plan, there's always a scheme how they can be delivered. There's, Krishna, sometimes he comes as himself, or he has his representatives, and there are periods in where that things are very confused. But then there's, enlightenment comes, Acharya will come, just like the resurrection of Lord Chaitanya's movement. There were, I don't know how many 100 years where it had become dissipated, and so many upper sampradayas until today. They're still out there. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, resurrected it, by his fabulous preaching and keen intelligence and wonderful purity, and then his glorious son Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Prabhupada. So even though it may seem dark at a certain point, that now it's hopeless, everything is dissipated, there's no pure devotees, but the spark is always there, and we are fortunate to be members of this movement and partaking of this wonderful knowledge Srila Prabhupada has left. And so now we're hearing more and more about the super soul, and that I think was it for the Prabhupada is emphasizing, as Krishna says, that there's two souls in the body, there's two knowers of the Chaitra. And so in the next verse, Krishna is going to summarize and review, and then go on and explore Prakriti and Purusha, which is also part of the question. Arjuna wanted to. What is this material world? Who is the Purusha? The living entity who's by nature Prakriti, who's pretending to be enjoyer, and there is called the Purusha. And one of the most important verses here is coming up, and if we get to it tonight, which is 22. Okay, if there's no questions, comments, we can go on. Text 19. Iti chaitram tata jnanam gyeyam choktam samasataha madan bhakta etad vigyaya madan bhavayo papadyate. Thus the field of activities, the body, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain to my nature. Purport. The Lord has described in summary the body, knowledge, and the knowable. This knowledge is of three things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowing. Combined, these are called Vigyan, or the science of knowledge. Perfect knowledge can be understood by the unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. Others are unable to understand. The monists say that at the ultimate stage, these three items become one. But the devotees do not accept this. Knowledge and development of knowledge mean understanding oneself in Krishna consciousness. We are being led by material consciousness, but as soon as we transfer all consciousness to Krishna's activities and realize that Krishna is everything, then we attain real knowledge. In other words, knowledge is nothing but the preliminary stage of understanding devotional service perfectly. In the 15th chapter, this will be very clearly explained. Now, to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7, beginning from Mahabhutani and continuing through Chaitanadritihi, analyze the material elements and certain manifestations of the symptoms of life. These combine to form the body or the field of activities. And verses 8 through 12, from Amanitvam through Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam, describe the process of knowledge for understanding both types of knower of the field of activities, namely the soul and the supersoul. Then verses 13 through 18, beginning from Anadi Matpadam and continuing through Vidisarvasya Vishtitam, describe the soul and the Supreme Lord, or the Supersoul. Thus, 3 items have been described: the field of activity, the body, the process of understanding, and both the soul and the Supersoul. It is especially described here that only the unalloyed devotees of the Lord can understand these 3 items clearly. So for these devotees, the Bhagavad Gita is fully useful. It is they who can attain the supreme goal, the nature of the Supreme Lord Krishna. In other words, only devotees and not others can understand the Bhagavad Gita and derive the desired result. So my understanding, if I recall correctly, is that this nice little summary had been omitted or majorly mangled in the original Macmillan Gita, and it was resurrected by Gurudev. Thank him for me. So this is a summary verse. He's just Chaitra, the Jnana, and the Gyeya have been described, and the other is Prakriti, Purusha, and there's one more subject. Prakriti, Purusha, and the field and the knower of the field, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. So we're going to hear more about Prakriti and Purusha now. But the important point here is that one has to be a devotee to understand these things. One really has to be a devotee to be interested in these things. You know, this idea of really understanding, analyzing ourselves, who we are, what is our situation here, and what is the method or means by which we can attain a higher state of consciousness, which is ultimately full of happiness and bliss and doesn't end. It's completely devoid of all kinds of miserable things and full happiness and full knowledge. That's not even on the radar for most people. Although they try, the attempt to attain happiness in this world is a pale reflection of the striving for our original Anandamaya existence. As Prabhupada brilliantly put it, this is a pale reflection or a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So that attempts to enjoy, and what do we find? You know, people, there's a whole movie thing. What are people going to do now? Oh no, we're stuck at home. Okay, there's a whole, here's what to watch. You know, here's the games to play. Here's how you can keep your mind busy. You know, and people are going stir crazy. You know, they're not happy, and when they go outside, they're also not going to be happy. These are just infinite number of ways in which you can go down a rabbit hole and try to achieve a state of happiness and peace, and you'll never do it. It's just not possible in this world. The very body is terminal. You know, he's terminal, he has a terminal disease. But as soon as you're born, you're terminal. You know, so how can you really be peaceful? All you can do is try to deceive yourself into saying, "Oh, now I finally reached the state." You know, but that again, it's dashed once after, and just by the passage of time. A devotee in Alachua, who I've known for years, suddenly had a stroke. His whole life is, he's got a few months to live now. You know, another devotee was here. I think you were here, Prajapati, the actor. Do you remember when he came? He visited? Yeah, he was. I remember he was one of the main people who had got drama going in ISKCON. You know, he and his wife were good actors. She was a dancer. He was an actor. He just passed away recently. Yesterday. So, but he has, so many bhakti credits, his future is very auspicious. I even told my mother that. She's in a hospice. I told you this, at my brother's house. And, her time was coming. She's 96, 96 years old. And she had some dementia. She couldn't remember things, And I told her, Mom, it's time for japa. I tell you the story. If there's any guests out there. So we sang, I said, so she couldn't do the whole mantra, harekrishna. And she was chanting. I was shocked, I was startled. Very clearly with calling out. I told her what it's about, names of God, harekrishna, harekrishna. We went on for about 5-6 minutes, I made a recording. So then maybe that day or a few days said, well, what's going to happen now, So I said, Mom, you have a very bright future. And, I don't know if that fully registered with her, but I really believed it. I've heard recently that Prabhupada said about, because in the early days especially, he interacted a lot with the parents. They would come and find out, what have you done with my boy, And so he would always be very gentlemanly and charm them, generally give them prasadam, And then at one point he said, they'll really appreciate their son or daughter involvement in this movement when they die, and they'll be taken to a higher planet or something. It's a very auspicious to be a parent or a relative of any kind of a devotee. So that knowledge is coming out systematically here. How, first of all, the idea that God is in our heart and is instructing us, giving us intelligence. I mean, that's a revolutionary thing to understand. It means, I'm searching for God, but if you just learn to listen, listen to the words that he's speaking through the Shastra and to the devotees, that's a very important point. You can come, it's very comforting to understand that you're never alone, And we always have the Lord with us. And now, with Prabhupada's wonderful pursuits, we're going to learn more about the Prakriti and Purusha. And this really comes close to home, just like the Kshetragya, we're in know of the field. So another way of understanding it is through the Purusha, trying to enjoy this field, and we're immersed in Prakriti, which is Krishna's energy. We've heard some about that in chapter 7 and other places. Okay, let's do one or two more. We may get to 22 after all. Prakratim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikarang Chagunang Chaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. Purport. By the knowledge given in this chapter, one can understand the body, the field of activities, and the knowers of the body, both the individual soul and the supersoul. The body is the field of activity and is composed of material nature. The individual soul that is embodied and enjoying the activities of the body is the Purusha, or the living entity. He is one knower, and the other is the supersoul. Of course, it is to be understood that both the supersoul and the individual entity are different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The living entity is in the category of his energy, and the supersoul is in the category of his personal expansion. Both the material nature and the living entity are eternal. That is to say, that they existed before creation. The material manifestation is from the energy of the Supreme Lord, and so also are the living entities. But the living entities are of the superior energy. Both the living entities and material nature existed before this cosmos was manifested. Material nature was absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu. And when it was required, it was manifested by the agency of the Mahatattva. Similarly, the living entities are also in him, and because they are conditioned, they are averse to serving the Supreme Lord. Thus they are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky. But with the coming forth of material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. Actually, the living entity is originally the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but due to his rebellious nature, he is conditioned within material nature. It really does not matter how these living entities or superior entities of the Supreme Lord have come in contact with material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows, however, how and why this actually took place. In the scriptures, the Lord says that those attracted by this material nature are undergoing a hard struggle for existence. But we should know it with certainty from the descriptions of these few verses that all transformations and influences of material nature by the three modes are also productions of material nature. All transformations and variety in respect to living entities are due to the body. As far as spirit is concerned, the living entities are all the same. Interesting. Fascinating. I remember, so many years I spent, so many years, it seemed like a long time, in my youth, from the age of about 15, I started getting interested in philosophy. And I know you do. You start quoting, the different philosophers. And I'm really looking for this knowledge. What is this world all about? Why am I here? Is there a meaning to it, or is it just, senseless? And Prabhupada says in the very first purport of the Bhagavatam, 111, I was just reading yesterday, that the inquisitive soul, the intelligent person, looks up in the sky and sees all these stars, and then wonders, where did all this come from? I remember I used to sometimes go out in the country in New York State and look up, and here's this Milky Way, just so many stars. You don't see them in the city, and it's just fascinating. Well, what's the meaning of all this? Is it just by accident, or is there somebody behind it? But where are you going to find that? Where were you able to find the answer, the definitive answers for how it all came to be and what the meaning of it is, before Prabhupada came and gave us these books and this knowledge? There's all kinds of speculation. It could be this way, that way, and a whole, bunch of philosophers says, there's no meaning to it. It's just the atoms in the void, So Prabhupada, he never wavers, never said, well, maybe it could be like this. We're not. It's always he's giving definitive answers here, giving definitive knowledge. So it's all very systematic, and this interesting that material energy is also eternal, but it's not manifested like this all the time. Half the time or more, in the in-breath, it's all within Mahavishnu, merged there, and we are also in a state of suspended animation, unconscious. I don't think we're even dreaming. I don't think we're dreaming there. We're unconscious. But our karma is recorded there, with us, and our tendencies and everything. And then when time comes to creation, we come out and we gradually occupy a suitable body to continue where we left off, and try again to progress, back to Godhead. So when you think about it, it's like, well, I don't want to go back in there again. Let's make this the last time. Let's actually go back to that spiritual world that we left. That's why it's so important to hear, what's going on there. I know the Brahma Samhita. I remember reading those last two verses when I first came across them, and it was such a wonderful description. And of course, Bhagavatam has so many. Also, Krishna's in Vrindavan. It's a Shriya Kanta Padama Purusha Kalpatadavo. You know these verses? You should learn it. You'd like it. Druma bhumis chinda mandaganamahi toyamamatam kata ganam natyam gamanam abhivangshi piyasaki chadanandam jyoti padamapitata swajamapicha. That's the second verse too. But it's right. In that transcendental world, the spiritual world, Vaikuntha or Loka, Shriya Kanta, that all of the beloveds of Krishna, they're goddesses of fortune. And he is Shriya Kanta, Kanta is feminine and plural. Shriya Kanta Padamapurusha. The one lover of them all is the Supreme Personality. Kalpadadavo Dhruma, all the trees are desire trees, the land is Chitamani, the water is nectar, the walking is dancing, the talking is singing, and one can always hear Krishna's dear flute playing in the distance, and everything is glowing with this Chidananda Jyoti, this blissful effulgence, which you can taste. The senses are also interchangeable there for the living entities as well as for Krishna. And then the cows, there's all these, Surabhi cows are so blissful of pouring this milk on the ground. And then, very fascinating, there's no time, there's no past or future, it's only the eternal present. Not a second passes away there, This land is only known by a few rare souls that walk this earth, I just found that so fascinating. And there's so many details given in the Bhagavatam and even more in the writings of the Goswamis. This paradisiacal world that we belong in. We were there and we foolishly left, and so let's go back home, back to God. And that gives your life a mission. It gives it meaning. Rather than just here and there, questioning, confused, and trying to enjoy and burning your senses and then damaging yourself alive. It's a nightmare. So Prabhupada has brought us to this point with his wonderful explanation here. Of course, giving us so much from previous acharyas, Baladev, Vijayabhushan, different quotes. And So the mystery, what is the mystery of this material creation? They are not allowed to enter into the spiritual sky, but with the coming forth of the material nature, these living entities are again given a chance to act in the material world and prepare themselves to enter into the spiritual world. That is the mystery of this material creation. That is the meaning of this material creation. It's another chance, but it's a reformatory. If we're still in that enjoying mood and we refuse reject the opportunities for knowledge, then we'll stay entangled and we'll suffer again and again. So it's a very it all makes sense, and from even a little experience in devotional service, you can see that it's just like coming home. In other words, it all makes perfect sense and logic, and I can understand that if it's not working for me, it's my fault. It's not that the process is faulty, because from history and even modern history, we can see the process works. People can become very blissful and peaceful, and go back to Godhead. And so, reading Prabhupada's books, gives you strengthens the intelligence, gives you more determination to follow the programs. So, let's see. Okay, so it's almost 8 o'clock, and I think we will. We'll read one more, and we'll save 22 for tomorrow. 22 is like one of my all-time favorites. Karya karana kartritve hetu prakatiruchyate purushak sukadukkanam bhoktritve heturuchyate. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Purport: the different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. When he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body, and not to himself as he is. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure. But in the material world, everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying desire. Now, the sum total, body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature, and as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. According to one's desires and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He can't act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the supersoul is with the individual soul. That is explained in the Vedas, Mundaka Upanishad with 3.1.1, as follows. Dva suparna sayuja sakaya. The Supreme Lord is so kind upon the living entity that he is always accompanies the individual soul, and in all circumstances is present as the supersoul or Paramatma. I think that Dva Suparna means two birds. That's the two birds verse. Yeah. So this is more fascinating information. And this is a really important point, is that the material nature is acting according to various laws and the modes of nature and higher, demigods and everything. But we are the causes of our own happiness and distress. How we interact with material nature, as will be explained in the next verse, in sum total makes our destiny. with each, everything you do, everything you say, what you read, what you say and write, and all these different activities, you're formulating a certain mentality that is then going to be the template for your next body. And even in this body, it's not a mystery. You do certain things, you try to enjoy the senses too much, you burn them out, and for the rest of your life you suffer. It happens all the time. So, Purushak Sukha Dukkha Nambotu Hetu Ruchite, we are causing our happiness and distress day by day. The karma is working not just from body to body, but even in this one body. So the question is, okay, well, how to act in relation to this body, in relation to the environment I'm in, for my ultimate good. This is this idea of Shreya or Nikshreya is so important. Arjuna, he didn't know, he had this whole argument, but ultimately he said, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not making me more confident that I'm doing the right thing by leaving the battlefield. So he surrendered to Krishna, that's the key element, and he requests him, Yakshreya Ksyan Nishtitam Bruhitanme. Now I trust that you, O spiritual master, Krishna, will explain to me how I can attain my ultimate good. Shreya, Syan, bring it into being. Nishtitam, certainly, without doubt. That's the whole problem, is that I have a plan to act, but I'm not completely confident that it's going to succeed. And without any reference to the Shastra, it's sure to fail. Although I can convince myself, and others can convince me that this is the way to go. And that whole blind leading the blind is going on from generation to generation. So these books, this knowledge, this movement cuts through all the confusion and really gives the light of truth, and how far we can accept it and act on it. That will be how much we become realized and potent to be media through which we can save others. So this is such an important concept. We are the architects of our own destiny, and this is reflected in that important verse Brahma speaks, where he says, Tattenu kampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatnukatam vipakam ridvag vapubir vidadan namaste jivete yo muktipade sadaya bhak. You don't know this one yet. This is one I'm going to point out to give you the reference. This is very important. That the devotee, pure devotee, he's always expecting the mercy of the Lord and seeing everything as the mercy of the Lord, even some sufferings that come. Susamikshamano, he sees that way. Everything is good. Bhunjana, he's experiencing bad and good and bad effects. Atma kritam vipakam, I did it. If something bad happens to me, it's not. I can't blame God or just nature. It's my fault. Purushak sukha dukkha bhoktam hetu. I'm the hetu. You see. So one who actually has this mentality and sees it all as Krishna's mercy. Something bad, Krishna's teaching me to be detached from this world. Something good happens, Krishna's so kind, he's given me more opportunity to serve him. So you see, in both good and bad circumstances, you remain positive toward Krishna, and you see his hand in it. So then it says, and not just superficially, rid vagvapubir, with your heart, with your body, your senses, and with your voice, you continue to serve faithfully. You buy a ticket to Vaikuntha. The end of the whole verse says, Yo jivati, one who lives in this way, mukti pade sabdayabak. He becomes like an inheritor of the situation mukti pade, which is, as Lord Chaitanya explained, at the lotus feet of Krishna, which are liberated. It's not. Sarvabhauma wanted to change the verse. He wouldn't say mukti pade. He said it must be bhakti pade. I can't stand the word mukti anymore. It had so many bad associations with it. But that's a very important verse, because in other religions or other things, where they don't really have this firm understanding, philosophical understanding, then when bad things happen, you go to church every week, you pray from the bottom of your heart. But as Prabhupada pointed out, the ladies in Germany, their sons, their husbands, their fathers, their brothers, many of them didn't come back, or they came back mangled and ruined. And so, where is my God now? You didn't answer my prayer. So they became atheistic. This is because they don't have the understanding. Religion without philosophy could be sentimentality or fanaticism. But what it isn't is something you can live by in every circumstance of life. And that's what this philosophy gives you. And so many of our literatures, the Pandavas underwent so much trouble, Haridas Thakur underwent so much trouble, Prahlad, but they never faltered in their faith in Krishna. and therefore they were exalted and they become famous throughout the ages. So I wanted to leave a little time, as a tradition, for poetry time, unless there's a question.
No.
How about a comment? You're welcome, Tapas, as always. Okay, I picked out one of my favorites here. Indranila, the first Kunja Bihar Ashtaka. So I'll give one sample of the Sanskrit because we're kind of low on time, and then I'll just do the English. It has a very great beat. This is the same meter as chapter 35 of the 10th canto. The Gopis' songs of one of their separation, it parallels the Venu Gita. And it's a beat you can dance to or play the drum. Indranil and rhyming. This is called the first Kunja Biharashtaka. 8 verses about Krishna playing in the forest. Indranil Manimandala Varna Pullani Pukasamanchitakarna Krishna Labada Kashorasi Hari Sundaro Jayat Kunja Bihari. His smooth complexion conquers sapphire stunning to the eye. Kadamba blooms with fragrance full on each ear gently lie. His beauty's greatened by his chest, where Gunja necklace stays. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Chakora longing for the moon of Radha's radiant face. A thief purloining patience from the coward's wives apace. His expert, what did I say? No, because it's not dancing or clapping. He's actually singing. I looked this up, so it's a mistake. His mesmerizing singing, winning all the gopis' praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. When Indra's sacrifice he stopped, he stole the Deva's pride by playfully uplifting Giri Govardhan to hide his friends and cow beneath the hill for 7 nights and days. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Heart-warming, warbling melodies adorn his flute, which sings of Cupid's fest. To him unending happiness it brings. The parrot pair his loving pastimes never tire to praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. You can come in on the chorus line. His glistening garments steal a splendid glow by gold possessed. A perfect peacock plume bedecks his most exquisite crest. Vrindavan's radiant girls rejoice to see his loving ways. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Most fragrant sandal paste anoints his limbs so slightly blue. A golden belt adorns his handsome waist. He's likened to an elephant bound by the ropes of Radha's winning ways. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. His fulgent forehead glows with golden tilak he's applied. His playful pastimes swing his champa garland side to side. He beats the gorgeous gopis for their rendezvous in caves. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Their work ignored, the coward's wives are nearly paralyzed when dancing glances strike them from the corners of his eyes. Ecstatic heroes setting love mad Radha's heart ablaze. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Now, here's the benefit for listening. The pastimes that the Lord enjoys in Braja's sylvan bowers enhance this octave's beauty and pour forth pure nectar showers. Whoever hears these verses soon acquires saintly traits and serves his lustrous lotus feet with love that ne'er abates. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.